Okay, so this is section 3.2, I'm sorry, 3.12, part 2. And in this section, we will be going over questions 3, 5, 11, and 12. So in this section, let's look at question number 3. They actually give you the trinomial. Like in this problem, it's v squared minus 15v plus 50. And our job is to factor it into two binomials. So we can start off by putting our two empty sets of parentheses and then putting our v and v. And the next thing we want to do is we want to look at the signs and get some information about what the signs will be. So here's the deal. If this second sign here is a plus, it means that both the signs are the same. So a plus here means they're going to have the same signs. And then this one tells us what they are. What they are. So they're both going to be the same. And in this case, they're both going to be minus signs. And so we can go ahead and anticipate that and put our two minus signs in there. And I think that that's helpful, okay? Now, if they're the same, that means that we're essentially going to be adding two negatives together. So what we want to do is we want to take this constant term here, which is a 50, and we want to write all the factors of 50. So this can be tricky depending on the number, but I recommend you start with 1. 1 times 50 is 50. Try 2. 2 times 25. Try 3. 50 divided by 3 is not a whole number, so 3 does not work. 4 does not go into 50. It's not a factor of 50. 5 is. 5 times 10. 6 is not. 7 is not. 8 is not. 9 is not. 10 is, but we've already got a 10 there. So once we are repeating numbers, then we're done, okay? And you know, I went through that pretty quickly, like 6 is not, 7 is not, 8 is not. If you don't know off the top of your head, then you can take 50 divided by 6 and see that doesn't fit evenly. 50 divided by 7 does not fit. 50 divided by 8 does not work, okay? So these are our groups of factors. Now, we already said that their signs would both be negative. So essentially, we need to see which combination, when I add these together, gives us the middle term of negative 15. So negative 1 plus negative 50 is negative 51. Negative 2 plus negative 25 is negative 27. And negative 5 plus negative 10 is negative 15. So this was the correct pair of numbers because the answer was the middle term. So I'm going to put a 5, now I already have my negatives, and a 10, and that should be the answer to this question. I created a worksheet which I've also put on the Canvas page. I would recommend that you download that worksheet because it'll help you through all those steps that we just did. And I would recommend that you print off, you know, at least 4 copies and do one for each problem in this set. Okay, so this is my answer. That's what I would type in. Let's try number 5, and we'll use the same concept that we did for number 3. Okay, number 5, I have, keep writing off screen, there we go. I have t squared minus 22t plus 121. And my job is to factor this into two binomials. So I start off with my two empty sets of parentheses. I have a t here and t here. Because this is a plus sign, it means that both signs are the same. So this one tells me that they're the same. And this one tells me what they are. So in this case, they're both going to be negative. So negative and negative. Next, I take the number 121 and I find all the factors of 121. So 1 times 121, 2 does not go in, 3 does not, 4 does not, 5 does not, 6 does not, 7 does not, 8 does not, 9 does not, 10 does not, 11 does, 11 times 11. And now if I went the next, I have the same number, so I would be repeating if I went beyond that. So these are my two options. They have to both have negative signs, and then I'm going to add them together. So negative 1 plus negative 121 is negative 122. Negative 11 plus negative 11 is negative 22. This is the winner because it gives me the middle term. So my answers would be negative 11 and negative 11. And I'm done. Okay, so let's look really quickly at problem number 11. Take me a second to get there. And there's only one real difference between these last two problems, 11 and 12, and the first two, 3 and 5, and that is an initial step. So I'm going to do 11, but I will not do 12. I'll leave that for you. So here's number 11. I've got 7x squared plus 28x minus 35. So this looks different than what we've been working on because I have a 7 in front of my x squared term. So in the last two questions, this was just a 1 in front of the squared variable. So the first thing I want to do is see if I can pull out a GCF, which I can because 7 goes into 7, 7 goes into 28, 7 goes into 35. So 7 can come out, leaving x squared, because 7 times x squared is 7x squared, plus 4x, because 7 times 4x is 28x, minus 5, because 7 times 5 is negative 35. And now I have an easier trinomial to factor. So the 7 is just going to stay in front. I'm not going to do anything else with that. And I want to factor this trinomial into two binomials. So the first thing I look at is this sign is a negative. So in the past two problems, it was a plus, which meant the signs were the same. In this case, it's a minus, so the signs are different, which means one has to be a plus, one has to be a minus. So I'm going to start off with my x's. One has to be a plus, one has to be a minus. Then I'm going to take my constant term, which is a 5, and I'm going to write the factors of 5. Well, there are only two factors, 1 times 5, because 2 does not go into 5, 3 does not, 4 does not. So if the signs are different, it means one is a plus and one is a minus. But that means I could have, instead of making the 1 a plus and the 5 a minus, I could have made the 1 a minus and a 5 a plus. So I have to try both ways. So a positive 1 plus negative 5 is negative 4. A positive 1 plus positive 5 is a positive 4. So this is the correct answer because my middle term was a positive 4. So that means the 5 is after the plus sign and the 1 is after the minus sign. And that's the answer to that question. Notice the 7 is still sitting out front as it needs to be. On question 12, you will find something similar to question 11. You'll pull out the common factor, although it will just, instead of just being a number like 7, it'll be something like 7x that you pull out as the GCF. Okay, this concludes part 2 of 3.12.